Hi, I'm Sharon Knight. It's really nice to see you again. I am from Hope Communities, which is a nonprofit that has been in our community helping vulnerable people for 40 years by providing housing, resource navigation, support services, and lots of events and activities to bring people together to build community. And building in community is one of the reasons why we are hosting this Facebook Live event. We believe that many of the individuals that we serve are feeling isolated and lonely and need some help. So we want to be here to see you, to let you know that we are there for you. This Facebook Live format allows you the opportunity to write comments, so you can ask us questions, you can put comments about the work that we're doing on an ongoing basis in the chat section on Facebook. I'm not sure if you see it, sometimes it's on the right hand side and sometimes on the left hand side, but if you want to just sign in and let me know that you are listening to this program, that would be great. I'm isolated too, so it's nice to know that somebody's actually watching me instead of being in the office all by myself. So also, if you don't want to use this chat function, and not everybody likes to put their name down, I know that we have a lot more people watching the show than actually record their name. But if you want to get some information to us, again, either a question or a comment, some more resources or the need for resources, you can also send us an email at info@hopecommunities.org at any time. You can do that. So I'm going to do a really quick summary of information related to the virus today, but then I'm going to spend most of this show talking about goal setting. So, sometimes when we're in a situation where we don't feel like we have control, and particularly when there's things going on in the community, I know 9/11 did this for me. Sometimes when people around us have died, we really take a step back and try to figure out where we are, what we want to do with our lives. And this situation right now is kind of like that. It's such a huge traumatic event that's impacting everybody. And I think some of us might want to do a little assessment. I know sometimes when I've been in situations when I've been really afraid, I'll try to get a scope on what my situation is, and then I'll even say things like, if I get through this, I will never do this again. I will never take anything for granted again. And so we make these big proclamations of how we're going to change our life. And I think this type of thought process affects all of us. It doesn't make any difference if you're wealthy or have no money, if you're old, if you're young, if you're able, if you're not. All of us go through this kind of gut-wrenching, soul-searching effort sometimes when there are big things happening around us. So we will get to that in a few minutes, and maybe some of the tips that I share, while you might have heard of them before, maybe they'll sink in now because they resonate now with the current situation that you're in, that we're all in. First, just in terms of the virus, it's been 5 weeks, and in the United States, we've had more than 32,000 deaths. In Colorado, where we had our first case diagnosed on March 5th, we're so much better in terms of reaction time. We've had about 8,600 cases that have been identified, but 374 deaths. It's nothing to sneeze about. We've contained it so much better than many other states, and I think part of that is because our governor, and then in the Denver metro area, our mayor did issue a stay-at-home order, and we've had social distancing guidelines for quite some time. So we've done well, but even one death is too many, and so it's something that we really, really need to pay attention to. The top 3 things that continue to be the most important things that we can do to stop the spread of the virus: wash your hands thoroughly for at least 20 seconds, many, many times a day. If water's not available, you can use hand sanitizer. Wear a mask when you're out in public. Doesn't make any difference if it's glamorous. We're all in the same boat. Wearing a mask will really make a difference. And then, of course, social distancing, which includes our stay at home order. I know it's a pain in the neck. I don't like it either, but it's a real key to helping to stop that spread. So, the other things you could do, which are not the top three, but still important, always cover your mouth if you're coughing or sneezing, clean and disinfect all kinds of surfaces. Go overboard. It's the best time to have some of those tendencies come out. We want to go overboard and make sure things are clean. And then avoid close contact with people who are sick. And if you have to care for someone who's sick, and I know many of us do, it's best to isolate the person who's ill in a separate room, to have them use a separate bathroom, and to clean, clean, clean. So what are the predominant symptoms? Well, we keep talking about the ones that include fever, shortness of breath, and a dry cough. Those are the main ones. And there are others, though, that are less prevalent, but oftentimes associated with early signs of the COVID. These are the types of things that could also be seen as signs of other illnesses, but they still merit taking care of and paying attention to. So flu-like symptoms, loss of taste or smell. A lot of people lose those senses. Sore throat or headaches, chills and body aches, having fatigue. If you have pain, especially in your chest, pink eye seems to be another early sign, diarrhea, vomiting, or bluish face or lips. Bluish face or lips means you're not getting the oxygen you need, and so you really need to pay attention to that. So if you have these types of symptoms, most of them can be managed at home, but if something gets to a more critical state, then you want to call your doctor. You don't want to just go into the emergency room. Call your doctor, or if you really cannot breathe, for instance, right away, to call 911 and let them know what's happening. And if you believe it's related to COVID-19, let them know that too. They may take extra precautions in terms of the gear or the processes that they use. So just make sure that you pass those things along. And I know that a lot of us are feeling isolated and lonely, and we're just frustrated and want to get back to work, but it's really not the time to try to rush things. We have to really respect this situation, and it's not going to be normal for a while, so we're going to have to learn to cope with that. Sorry to say, and it is scary and it's frustrating and sometimes it's lonely, but be better to experience that for a little while now than to have this drag on for so much further, or heaven forbid, for something to happen and your family to be sick, for instance. So really, really be careful. I know that a lot of people are not able to find the supplies that they need to follow all these guidelines. There are lots of ways that you can clean. Even soap and water on surfaces in your house is to clean is much better than having nothing at all. So try that. Hand sanitizer has been pretty tough to get for a long time. We actually have gotten some a few different times from some distilleries in the area. And if you really need some hand sanitizer, let us know. We'll try to get you some. I just picked some up last night at Mythology Distillery. They have been amazing for us, and I know other distilleries have also been helping, but it's really good to have that. And I just have to say that even though these sanitizers are made in a distillery, they are not liquor, and you are not supposed to drink them. We've actually been told that we should share that information, and it sounds like something that everybody would realize, but better safe than sorry. We at Hope are also delivering food to families. So primarily we've been doing that around our properties, but let us know if you really need food. We are not opening up a service for people to come to us. We are bagging things up and taking them to everyone's house. So just a lot safer and cleaner that way, but you have to let us know. We have people who are navigators who are helping anyone that gives us contact information and wants us to reach out with finding resources that they need, with going through some of the the issues right now in terms of unemployment and finding enough food for their families, and also finding emergency rent. So right now we have navigators who speak English, Somali, Arabic, and Spanish, and Burmese. So we're in the process of hiring more, but at least those we have. And so please share this information with other people who might need to get additional facts and figures and resources, but don't have really strong English capabilities. We are happy to try to help. So before we get into our next part of our show, which is around goal setting, let me remind you that my name is Sharon Knight, and I am President and CEO of Hope Communities. You can find lots of resources on our website at hopecommunities.org, including the names of all those navigators that I referenced just a second ago. So I like to share a quote with you, and this one is from Anne Frank. She said, everyone has inside him or her a piece of good news. The good news is you don't know how great you can be, how much you can love, what you can accomplish, and what your potential is. So I've got to ask if you think that you've reached your potential. In times that are uncertain and times when we feel like we have absolutely no control, I think it's helpful to focus on the things that we can determine, the things that we can control. And one way to do that is to set goals for yourself and to set a plan and action so that you can accomplish those things. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I think, I want to set something up for you and help remind you of how you can develop these goals so that you have little wins, especially in the beginning. Right now, people are feeling a little deflated, can't do things the way that they normally do. Everything feels foreign. We talk about a new normal, but nothing feels normal. And so maybe we could start by just thinking that it's time perhaps to recalibrate. So I like to sometimes start with taking an assessment. What's an inventory of my life, per se? So what are you doing that you always hoped you would do? And not what your parents thought you should do, not what your significant other thought you should do, not what your friends are all doing, but what have you really hoped that you could do, that you really wanted to do with your life, and are you doing it? So these are kind of tough conversations that you're having with yourself, but be kind to yourself, because this is the time for deep reflection, and you have a little bit of alone time in many regards, because we're kind of like keeping isolated. Social distance gives you another little chance to look inside. So the questions like, do you live where you want to live? Are you working the job you always dreamed you would? Have you learned the skills that you wanted to do? Have you written the book you wanted to write? Do you have the income that you thought you would? The health? Do you have the kind of relationship that you want? And are you the kind of person that you want to be? When I've thought about this lately, I thought about, am I spending my time with the kind of people that I want to spend my time with? That's one other thing, and there's lots of other movies about coming of age where young people realize that they've been hanging out with maybe elitist young people who seem to have everything, but they're mean to everybody else, and thinking that you could hang around with those people and that you too would have more power and fame. And then they come to realize that really that's not what they want in their life, and they change their perspective. Well, sometimes into adulthood, we get those same tendencies where we might be with people or do things that we think we should, that we think would propel us forward. And in reality, it's not making us happy. And so just to have that kind of conversation with yourself is this really what I want to do? So it's time for soul searching. One thing I do is I do soul search, and then I think about what I want to what I want to do with my life when I grow up, kind of. And then I will put quotes around my house that remind me. It's more of a subliminal type of a thing where I see these and I read them once in a while, but I also just kind of know they're there. And one of the quotes that I've had up on a bulletin board at my house for many, many years is by Maya Angelou. And she basically says that people will forget what you said, they will forget what you do, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that's been really important to me for, as I said, for many, many years, and always worth reflecting on, when we think about who we're spending time with and how we treat people. So that's the type of thing that when you get perspective during a quarantine or a time like that, you can really start to think about what would be the nuances of change that you could make right now that would affect your life moving forward. So there's other things. I think you have to always consider what things you actually have control over and what things you don't. Every year I write goals for myself, and I've had to sometimes rewrite them a couple of times because I have said things that I don't really have full control of. Relationships, for instance. You can control how you feel. You can control what you do. And if you exerted undue force, you might be able to control what someone else does, but you really can't control how they feel. You can't make someone love you, for instance. So you don't have control over that. Some other things, many of the residents that we work with at one of our properties, for instance, are refugees. They were forced to leave their country and because of genocide or something like that. And they would love to go back, even for a visit, but they really can't. Not now, not for a long time, and maybe not forever. So they have no control over that. What would they have control at? When you're trying to fine-tune your dreams and your goals here, they might have control about where they live now, what type of home or what type of community they build that would be like the one that they had to leave behind. If you are targeting something like health, there's some things you can control and some things you cannot. If you have an illness, you may not be able to control that alone, but if it is helped with medication, you can control that part. If you can be vigilant in terms of taking all the medication that you need. If you're doing something like wanting to set a goal for weight or for fitness, let's say for the nutrition and the food that you eat, you certainly can control what you eat, when you eat it, how much you eat it. But in terms of general overall health and how that impacts your body, you have limited control there. So I'm going through all of these things because I think as you start to set goals, we need to be realistic, and we need to try to think about things that we do have control over as much as possible, and then to figure out how we would address the parts of what we can't control to make our life a little bit better. I think goals should be related to making your life happier or better. This morning I listened to Temple Grandin on CPR this morning, and she was talking about the importance of building a schedule at this time when we're all in quarantine. And she said that helps to guide what your day will look like, and it helps you to have success and so forth moving forward in the day, because your whole schedule, your normal schedule, has been all messed up. And so I think, that's something that we can control, and that might be something that we want to have as one of your goals moving forward. When we set goals, I know a lot of people have already heard this before, we want to think about SMART goals. So come up with something that's very specific, that's meaningful to you, and you know really where you want to go. Things that are measurable. How can you tell if you're improving? If it's weight that you want to lose or weight that you want to gain, you can see that fluctuating needle on the scale. If it's getting stronger. You can see that. If it's finishing a book that you started many years ago, you can see the progress of that. So something that is measurable, something that's attainable. Again, do we have the power to make it happen? Is it in our control to do it? May not be easy, so we're not saying it has to be easy, but can you actually get it done? And then, relevant, is it really important to you? And then coming up with a time frame. So those are SMART goals. I think it's sometimes helpful to also have a buddy to go through this with you, depending on what your goal is. A buddy might do something with you. So if you're doing a fitness goal, it's really great to have a buddy who's going to be there to encourage you to keep on trying and to work with each other moving forward. But it also could be a buddy that is just monitoring and watching and giving you encouragement, but not actually working on it themselves. So it's nice to have, maybe particularly during quarantine time, to have somebody else who's checking in with you to see how you're doing, not only on a daily basis, but with your specific goals. And then, I think you need to start this believing that you can do it. It's, we set ourselves up sometimes. So if you believe you can do it, that's going to give you the impetus to actually make those steps forward. For me, affirmations are helpful. So affirmations are statements that you can make several times a day that you say in positive frame as if you already achieved the goal. So we might say something like, I am thrilled that I am at my goal weight of blank because I feel healthy and vital and that I can do whatever I want to do. And so you say something like you already achieved it, and to demonstrate how good you would feel if you actually got that goal. So it's really good. You're kind of seeing yourself, you're setting yourself up as a winner, and to keep saying. And again, I have mentioned before in other shows here that I have a sign on my wall that says, give thanks. And it's one of the first things I see in the morning. So for me, it's not an affirmation particularly, but it is something that is, again, almost, it's a subliminal clue for me. Sometimes I key in on that and I say, okay, let me think about the ways that I have gratitude. And other times it's just there, just like some of the quotes or some of the pictures around my house. Some people use vision boards that way. They set up a picture board that shows either words or actual photos of things that they want to do. Those are their aspirations. We did this project with some of our kids at Hope Communities, and they visualized, they came up with pictures from magazines about where they wanted to be in 10 years. And so it's one of those things that if you keep that around, and again, it's almost like an affirmation, you're seeing, this is where I would be. You unconsciously do things that help you to go into that direction. So sometimes a vision board might be helpful for you. As we move forward here now, I might recommend coming up with maybe 3 SMART goals, 3 small goals to start with that you might be able to get done in the next month or so to really see some progress. You could even have goals that you want to see done in a week. It doesn't mean that you can't also set some longer ones, because this is a great time for reflection to think about long-term goals. But you could have short-term goal like setting up a new schedule to help you get through each day. Or maybe you could have something like, I'm going to reach out to at least one person every day to check in on them and to help them feel better. Or you might say, I'm going to have at least one really healthy meal every day. So these are things that you can check off. So you could have a calendar and you could say, did I eat well today? Check. Did I call at least one person today? Check. And sometimes it's helpful to see what you accomplished. Some people say that when you are setting those small goals like that, instead of saying, I will call one person each day for the next 5 weeks, that you could say, I'm going to call 7 people a week, or I'm going to call 35 people in the next 5 weeks. And that allows you the opportunity to actually complete something all in one day, in a few days, or every single day. So you get, this is your life. You get to choose how you do that. If you are working on a longer term goal, like I want to change my career because this would not be true for me, but while I'm running a nonprofit, I have always wanted to be a banker. So if you had something like that, that was a really big career move, you might say, what do I want to do? And it's going to be probably a long-term goal. What do I want to do? This is the time to research and figure out what are the things I need to make that happen in terms of what are the skills. Do I need to take classes? Do I need to do an internship? Is there something that I need to do in terms of the geography of where I live? So thinking about all those little incremental parts of what would make that happen, and then trying to think about a timeline. And this really is a good time to research things like careers. I mean, if you wanted to run a nonprofit, you could Google, what is it really like to run a nonprofit? Or you could make some appointments with people who currently run nonprofits and say, what's it really like on a day-to-day basis? And what are the real skills that you need? And so then you would have a better idea of how to set up some objectives that you could start to map out. So those, I think, you can really do a lot of planning now and come up with some guideposts and some benchmarks that would help you to move forward. I just think whether you're working on short-term goals or long-term goals, that you should not be too hard on yourself. Sometimes we are our own worst critics. No matter what we do, we're going to have some good days and some days that are not as effective. So we're going to have to start knowing that we can be successful, but not every day and everything we do will be successful. And let's kind of meter what our expectations are. When I first started doing this show, for instance, the first show I did, afterwards I was very self-critical. The idea behind the show was just to reach out and to let people know that we were there for them and to provide information and so forth. And after the first show, I was like, that doesn't look very professional. And I had to really think about the fact that that wasn't the actual goal. The actual goal is to be a real person reaching out to real people to give you information and also to let you know that somebody cares about you. So that has been, or that is being achieved. And so, setting that realistic perspective of what was the actual goal can be really important. So one of the goals that many of the people that I know have during this time, because they have quite a bit of downtime, is they want to read some more books. Often our lives are so hectic that we don't take the time to read. And so we have been doing a feature with every one of these Facebook Live sessions to have someone preview a book that they really enjoy. We've had some great books so far. I know lots of people making lots of lists because we have some really, really fun books. We have one that's going to be reviewed today. Actually, we have a reviewer who's just an outstanding reviewer who is going to provide an overview of 4 books. So we will be posting her video right after this session. But the person who's doing the review is Vanessa Bernal, and she is a 3-time Emmy award-winning trilingual reporter, news and anchor and producer. So she's had 10 years of experience in the television industry in the US and in Mexico. She began her career in Mexico and did a TV magazine show, and she moved to the United States in 2011, and she was a reporter for Univision, Colorado, and then she was the main news anchor and producer for the afternoon and evening shows a little bit later in 2014. So she has a lot of experience, obviously, as a moderator and MC, and she also has gotten into health campaign spokesperson roles. And so right now, she is working as a bilingual media specialist for the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment for the United States. And so she's super busy, obviously. She's very talented, and she's taking her time out to review 4 books. I'm going to try not to do too bad a job with this because 3 of the books are in Spanish. I know Jamie is going to write these out for me on our comment section, but Tu Momento Estelar by Luis Maria Doria, Convenciam de Vivar by Gabby Perez Isla, El Traciato de la Vida by Fernando Mata, and then The Best Advice I Ever Got by Katie Couric. Her video will be, as I said, will be on in a few minutes, and she's just outstanding to watch. When I watched her video before I knew of her extensive background, I was like, gosh, you're really good at this. Of course, now I realize why. She's obviously quite a professional. I think you'll enjoy it. The books look awesome, so I hope you get a chance to read those too. So I hope that you have good luck with your soul searching and setting your goals. Remember to start small, but then continue to move forward. They'll adapt as you adapt and as you grow. And if there's anything, as always, if there's anything at all that we can do at Hope Communities to help you, or if you know anyone else who needs our help, please share our information for our website, hopecommunities.org, and also let them know that they can reach out to us at info@hopecommunities.org to get some help. Thank you so much and have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.